please join me in welcoming Ann McElhinney.
Good morning, everyone. It's really lovely to be here, and it was great to meet so many of you last night, and so many old friends. So I'm always nervous that I'm going to be telling stories that a lot of you have heard before, but they're still good stories, I suppose. I suppose two things I want to try and do today. One is to, try and give you a flavour of how dangerous the green agenda is. And then the second thing is to arm you with weapons to counteract that or to fight back. And also ways to convert people. Because human beings are very good at heart, I believe. And I think if you know enough about the environmental story, I think it's very clear what side you should be on. And I think most people, if they actually knew the story, if they understood what Greenpeace actually does, if they understood what all these organisations do and what they achieve in the world, I think they might change. I think people might change their minds about supporting them and giving money to the Tides Foundation and all the rest of them. I'd like to do a shout out, by the way, to people who can't be here today. And I know we have Barb McKinney, who is looking at us on the streaming here from Seattle today. So I just want to shout out to her. She would love to have been here. She has a wedding of her daughter next weekend. As I said, it's very good to be here, and it's lovely to see all of you. So I used to be a different person than the person I am. As I said, I come to these places and look out and think, God, how did I get here? I used to be this, I used to be a high school teacher in Ireland, very liberal, and I followed all that stuff. And I thought that environmentalists, I don't know if any of you remember that, you remember they were woolly jumpered, and they wore sandals, and they were into batik and cafe lattes and mocha, and they were into all that, kind of the cool stuff, really, actually. And they were just nice, and who wouldn't like them, And they were tree huggers, they were hoping to save trees, and they saved whales and saved seals, and I kind of, I suppose I was lazy, so I wasn't one of them, but I thought, aren't they very nice to be caring about all that stuff and caring about animals? And I'm a terrible person, but aren't they lovely? And, it's great, and the woolly jumper, the whole business, and the look at them and the kind of, facial hair, all that stuff. And then something happened to me. And a story can happen to you that changes the way you are. And I always think, coming to events like this, I just love it. Like last night talking to people, every woman in this room, and men, sorry, but has a fantastic story. Has a fantastic story of their own life. Beautiful stories. My story is interesting. I met a man. My husband, Ann McElhinney, and we moved to Romania. He worked for the Financial Times, and I decided to become a journalist at that time. And I freelanced, and I just did stories for anybody. And I did loads of great stories. I did murders and great, just fantastic. And then this story came up, this fantastic story came up, this story of this evil mining company. And you've heard those stories. Everyone knows about all the evil mining companies every day in the New York Times. Is one of them that's exposed. So evil Canadian mining company. When you think about it, actually, when you really rationalise it, evil Canadians, is that not a... I think that's an oxymoron or whatever they call it. But so these evil Canadians were in Transylvania, and they were going to destroy this pristine wilderness, pristine environment. Pristine is a big word with environmentalists. Watch out for the word pristine, you'll find it a lot. Everything's pristine, and humans make everything awful. So these awful Canadians were up there on a gold mine, awful, greedy, grubby Canadians, raping the land, raping the local women. So I went up there, but I went up there as a complete innocent. And I just loved being a journalist. I just loved it. It's an incredible thing, because you can walk up to total strangers and ask them questions about themselves, which I think, I have to say, it's kind of in my nature to do that anyway. So this suited me just fine. Oh, how much money do you earn? Oh God, where did you get the big car? It suited me very well. So I went up there to this small mountain village in Transylvania, where people lived really awful lives, to be honest with you. Had a very, very tough time. They'd been doing mining there, though, for 2,000 years. And the recent mining there was done by communists. Greenpeace does not have a problem with communist mining. Always watch out for that one. They've no problem with communist mining. They've a problem with Western mining. Western mining, which has all the high standards. Watch out for that one. So, there's two women up there. And we have, women. Two women up there with too much time on their hands and too much money, who single-handed, and foreigners, they weren't from there, a Belgian woman and a Swiss woman, were up there defending the pristine wilderness from these evil Canadians. And I just started asking questions. And very quickly thought, oh my God, I've discovered the most amazing story. I've discovered the most amazing... I'm going to win Pulitzer Prizes for this. I am going to win Pulitzer Prizes. The evil Canadians aren't evil. The evil Canadians are amazing. And they're doing an amazing thing. They're going to run a really clean, wonderful, modern mine. And they're going to give all these people jobs. And they're going to transform this awful place for all these people. And it's all great. And people who have been living in one-bedroom apartments, 6 adults with no running water and intermittent electricity for heat. Those people are going to have a house. Woohoo! I'm thinking, this is great, and I'm going to be the one, because the New York Times have told the story wrong. And I'm sure they don't want to do that. And CNN have told the story wrong, and I'm sure they don't want to do that. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to be like Pulitzer Prize winning. I'm going to travel around the world. You know, it's all good. Now, you know what happened next. I realized the kind of the limitations on modern journalism, on trying to get stories told. I realized that very quickly. And to bypass that, Phelim and I decided we would make a documentary, because we couldn't believe it. We just couldn't believe it. That these 2 women were up there stopping this mine, and how they were stopping the mine was by telling lies. And we pointed out the lies to them, and we're like, but that's not true. And they're like, yeah, but we're all very emotional. Everyone's very emotional. I said, it doesn't matter how emotional you are, you have to tell the truth. Well, we're very emotional. To this day, Greenpeace still on their website have lies about that project. They said that the people were being forced illegally out of their homes. And the word illegal, and I know we've got some legal eagles here in this room today, the word illegal is easy, actually. Because if an illegal thing happens, you can go to the police, you can file a report, there's all kinds of evidence then. But there is no evidence for this story. There's never been a family who were forced out of their homes in order for this mine to open. And I kept going, I kept asking, these women, give us the names of the families, because I'll put it up. It's a great story. This is Romania, who had just recovered from communism. They knew an awful lot about people being forced out of their homes. That was a thing that would have had a lot of, that was something that they would feel very strongly about. If it was true, it's a great story. It just wasn't true. But that's the difference between us and Greenpeace. They don't have to tell the truth. And this upset me at the time, I have to say, because I didn't actually understand that. I didn't realize that. I thought you were required, like the Canadian company, are required to tell the truth. If they lied, the whole world would be down on their shoulders. Everyone would be after them. The media would be after them, shareholders, the World Bank. All these people are watching them, watching their behaviour. No one watches the behaviour of environmentalists. No one. No one is after them, and no one is asking them hard questions. So, we decided we'd make this film, and we thought we would take a miner, an unemployed miner called George, a lovely young man, and we would take him, and our basic question was, maybe it only happens in Romania. Maybe this is only in Romania. Maybe it doesn't happen anywhere else. And we thought, let's see if it happens other places. And we took him, and we went around the world. We went to Madagascar, and we went to the Chilean-Argentinian border and looked at 2 other mines that were having difficulties opening. And we asked the locals, what's the story? And I think everyone in this room probably knows enough to know the stories are the exact same. Absolutely the same. And the characters stopping the development are always the same. They have a lot of things in common. And I'm going to kind of do that today. What I'm going to do today is we're going to look at a few of these characters. I'm going to introduce you to a few of these characters. And the character that I think most eloquently represents the environmental movement for me out of Romania is a guy called Mark Fenn, who had a beautiful job. And some people in this room have seen our film, Mind Your Own Business, which is for sale, and you are all going to be required to buy it before you leave. And Mark Fenn was the head of the World Wildlife Fund in Madagascar. A beautiful job, as you can imagine. Gorgeous. And he was living there, and we brought the unemployed miner, George. And we said to George, you interview him. You interview him and ask him why it is this mine hasn't opened. And I'm going to give you just 30 seconds of what Mark Fenn said, because I couldn't say it better myself. And we're just hoping to God that the technology works here.
But people in fact are found are very poor.
George, you raised a very good question. But at some point I'm going to turn it back on you. How do we perceive what is rich and what is poor? Who is rich and who is poor? You spent some time in Fort Dauphin. People are economically disadvantaged. People have no jobs. But if I could put you with a family, and you count how many times in the day that family smiles, if you could measure stress, and then I bring you back to Romania, and I put you with a family well off, or New York, or London, and you count how many times people smile and measure stress, and you look at how those people interact, then you tell me who is rich and who is poor.
The gift that keeps on giving. Mark Fenn. It's very interesting. Not long after that, actually, in The Economist, I saw an ad for the World Wildlife Fund looking for a new project leader or whatever in Madagascar. So, but he's not at all atypical. This is a very typical guy. I just think, this guy was fantastic. We went and interviewed this guy, and we could not get him to shut up. You couldn't get him to stop talking. He talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, and talked, this kind of stuff. The smile test. They're all smiling. Those Africans are all smiling. Therefore, they're all really happy. The death of their children before their 5th birthday doesn't bother them at all. They're not upset by that. What upsets him is that he hasn't seen a lemur that day. That's what's driving his engine. And when we were there, I can tell you that in southern Madagascar, and life is too short for any of you to ever go there, it's very hard to get a hotel room, it's very hard to find accommodation, and you go there because the hotels, and the reason that the hotels are full, the hotels are full of environmentalists. Full of environmentalists. And they're having these hugs and kisses with each other, and tears. And the tears are for the lemurs. They're all talking about the fact they saw lemurs, they didn't see lemurs, the lemur was small, the lemur was big, they saw 5 types of lemur. Lemur. I had never heard of a lemur until I went to Madagascar, and you know something? It's okay with me. And subsequent to this, I have to tell you this very funny story. We went to UCLA and showed Mind Your Own Business. And a bunch of environmentalists came, and they formed a row, and there were these girls, beautiful, just gorgeous, with great hair and great dentistry, these girls in a row, and they were there, and they were very, very upset by me, by what things. So at the end I was talking and answering questions, and I was talking about the lemurs, about how upset I was about people's concern for lemurs. The same people who have no concern for 5-year-olds. Yeah. That was my issue. It's a 5-year-old with a distended tummy on the road to looking at the lemurs that they drove past. That made me angry. And so I'm in UCLA in this kind of pretty hostile environment, and I said, you know something, it just occurs to me that the dinosaurs became extinct and we're all fine. I think we could do without the lemurs. We can't do without the 5-year-olds. We can't do without the 5-year-olds. And they literally, in slow motion, these 5 girls. And it was like the worst thing that ever heard. I may as well have suggested mass murder. I don't know what I don't think I could have said something worse to them. But that's their mentality. They're really concerned about lemurs. I don't know what happened to them in their lives. I really don't know what happened to them. I have lots of theories. How you can become that person who gets wound up about bouncy animals, and you ignore children. And you ignore what it must mean for people. And I know there's people in this room who've lost children. And it is extraordinary to me. And I don't even have children myself. I just think, when I contemplate it, how devastating it is to lose a child. How extraordinary it must be to lose a child. And these people are so casual about it. These are not my kind of people. So, after making Mind Your Own Business, things started to happen. And the big thing that happened was people started to talk about DDT and about Rachel Carson. I hadn't heard of either. And Rachel Carson, it's interesting talking about Clare Booth's Luce and the effect she's had in the world and of her ideas and how inspiring her ideas are. And I love to say to people, don't ever believe that one person can't change the world. Don't ever believe that you can't have the power to change the world. Rachel Carson did it. One woman writing a nice book. It's very poetic. And she got everyone to think that pesticides are a bad thing. She got everyone to think that DDT is a bad thing. That DDT, the one thing that could save children from this horrible death, by the way. It's not just death, it's a horrible death. So the mother has to witness the child dying of malaria. The biggest killer on our planet. The biggest killer on our planet is malaria, and we have the cure for it, but we're not using it. Because environmentalists don't like pesticides. You see where I am with this environmentalist thing, you know? So I want to show you a short piece out of Not Evil, Just Wrong. So we made another film. We made Mind Your Own Business, and we made Not Evil, Just Wrong. They're on special today. But Not Evil, Just Wrong, in that we decided to look at the history of the environmental movement, how it really took off. And Rachel Carson is really responsible for that. She really popularised it. Her book, Silent Spring, was serialised in the New Yorker. You know, John F. Kennedy talked about it. It was the big thing at the time. And it's amazing, you know, how an idea can just light up a country. The whole of America went for it. Everyone believed it. Because obviously they'd used loads of DDT in this country. It was ridiculous, the amount of DDT they used here. And people here, lots of people in this room old enough to remember it. And the big clouds and all of that. They remember all of that. And guess what? You know, it wasn't meant to be used like that, by the way. It wasn't meant to be used like that. But guess what? It was used like that here in America. And where are the cancers? You know, where are all the dying Americans that are dying? I mean, you know, you want a Petri dish? You want to work out how dangerous DDT is? This is the country to look at. This is the country that works. You can work it all out from. People here ate it, basically. There are people in this room who ate it. And they're looking well on it, I can tell you. I may have to have some of it myself. So you tell a story that's not true. And I think this is what attracted us in Not Evil, Just Wrong, to retell the Rachel Carson story. And then to tell the Al Gore story. Because they're so similar. They're so similar in so many ways. And I think it's very... And he, by the way, Al Gore, thinks the greatest human being that ever lived is Rachel Carson. So I want to show you this little piece, which I am very happy to have Magda very close to me here, in case this doesn't work. Quick time, Magda.
DVD player.
DVD player. Oh, okay, it's all happening. There we are. It's good. Thank you. It's warming up.
The environmental movement, which is now calling for a ban on coal, oil and gas, has its origins in a campaign that began 5 decades ago. Rachel Carson, an American marine biologist, claimed that the pesticide DDT was a danger to animal and ultimately human life. This very effective campaign led to a near worldwide ban on DDT, which had disastrous consequences.
Well, it all began with Rachel Carson, and it began with the notion that DDT was single-handedly responsible for the decline of predatory birds like owls and eagles and hawks. And at the time, the story was believed by everyone.
Silent Spring, Rachel Carson's 1962 best-selling book, demonized the pesticide DDT, which had previously been considered a life-saving invention.
This occurred largely because of speculation, not really documented by good scientific evidence. And it became a movement. It became an enormous movement.
Well, Darren, this is, of course, the going-the-distance pre-convention tour for Al Gore. Here, in touting his commitment to the environment, one of his favorite issues, he toured the Rachel Carson homestead. Silent Spring, credited by many, including Vice President Gore, as the book that really set the stage for the modern environmental movement.
Of course, the banning of DDT on a worldwide basis caused organizations like the World Health Organization and USAID, humanitarian organizations, to stop using DDT for the control of mosquitoes which cause malaria. That clearly resulted over the last 40 or 50 years in millions of people dying because DDT was no longer being used. It had been eradicated from large parts of the world, and still is, thankfully, but other parts of the world, particularly Africa, continued to have the malaria-bearing mosquito, and after the use of DDT was ended, malaria skyrocketed in countries like Uganda and Mozambique and South Africa.
Malaria has caused havoc in this country. It has caused a lot of damage to the economy of this country. On the average, we are talking about 370 children dying every day. die. At the end of the day, die because of malaria.
Yeah, and I'm not finished on DDT. Actually, I realised I wanted to read something else to you, and I know some of you have heard me read this before. God, I've got all the technology going today. I've got the iPad going here. It's great. Don't we love our iPads? But aren't we looking at them a little bit disappointed that they're not iPads too? The malaria story for me is it's a real make or break thing. I think I want to get all of you guys really active here. I think you need to insist on this getting shown in schools. Children will not want to be on the side for stopping. They won't want to be on the side that stops DDT being used. Now, you know what they're hearing in the school right now? They're only hearing bed nets. That's all they hear. They hear two things, by the way. They hear that the biggest killer out there is AIDS. AIDS. AIDS is not the biggest killer. AIDS is not the biggest killer. The biggest killer on the planet is malaria. But no one talks about it, because their hairdresser didn't die of malaria. And I do think there's something in that. I actually think there's something in that. You know? It happened to me, so then it's a problem. Malaria doesn't happen in America. Thanks be to God, because the place was doused with DDT. And we've got really rich. And we're very careful about how we live in a very, very developed society. Thanks be to God. But all these other places, it's a scourge. And children die more than anyone else. It's mostly it's children. Children and pregnant women. And they talk about bed nets. And every child that you know in your life, in America, every one of them, is in a schoolroom being talked about bed nets and being told to collect money for bed nets. And you need to get angry and you need to get busy and you need to stop it. And here's what you do about the bed net argument. You find the National Geographic. The National Geographic did a huge malaria piece, and anyone who wants it, I'm going to get, all you got to do in Google is put in malaria National Geographic. And this very long article will come up. And flick on to the very end. Read the whole lot of it, obviously. Flick on to the end of it, and this is the bit that you want to go to the teacher with about bed nets. And you say, this is what we need to read to the children about bed nets. So bed nets are going to save the children, is that right? Here's the last 3 paragraphs. And some of you guys have heard this, and I'm not going to stop reading this to everyone. When it comes to malaria, only one thing is guaranteed. Every evening in the rainy season across much of the world, Anopheles mosquitoes will take wing, alert to the odours and warmth of living bodies. I have a real problem reading this, actually. A female Anopheles needs to drink blood every 3 days. In a single feeding, which lasts as long as 10 minutes, she can ingest about 2.5 times her pre-meal weight. In human terms, the equivalent of downing a bathtub-sized milkshake. If she happens to feed on a person infected with malaria, parasites will occupy the blood. 2 weeks later, when the mosquito flies through the open window of a mud hut, seeking her next meal, she'll be loaded. Inside the hut, a child is sleeping with her sister and parents on a blanket spread on the floor. The family is aware of the malaria threat. They know of the rainy season's dangers. They've hung a bed net from the ceiling. But it's a steamy night, and the child has tossed and turned a few times before dropping back to sleep. Her foot is sticking out from under the bed net. The mosquito senses it and dips down for a silent landing. That's all you need to know about bed nets. And in every school in this country, children are collecting money for them. It's not good enough. It's only good enough if you're a racist. If you're a racist, it's fine. They don't deserve to live. I mean, seriously, we have the tools. The World Health Organization have told us that DDT is the safest, cheapest, most effective way of stopping malaria. The mosquito doesn't come into your house at all. You spray the inside walls twice a year. It's cheap, it's safe, and you don't have to go into a hospital and watch your child die an agonizing death unnecessarily. We wouldn't have it here. We wouldn't allow it here. We would not allow it here in the United States. We would not. 350 children every day in Uganda. 350 every day in Uganda. You think you'd allow that in the United States? No way. We'd all be We'd all be going around like this, brushing the DDT off ourselves. That's what would happen. A little bit emotional about that one. This is who these people are. This is who environmentalists are. And when you try to argue this point about DDT, they'll talk about eggs and they'll talk about cancer. There is no proof for anything they're saying. But of course, they can do that. They can talk all their nonsense. And you need to talk about the bed nets, and you need to quote them the WHO, the World Health Organization. And the fact that this country here was destroyed with malaria. This country had a huge malaria problem. Can you believe that? Imagine this country. And no one dies of malaria now. That's progress. It's a good thing. We want it. Bring on the pesticides. I love to tell people that, you know that we're the environmentalists. I want everything natural, organic, back to nature. I don't want anything natural in my life. And I love to quote that my father at 90 had a hip replacement. You think that's natural? No, but he's really enjoying life. Really, really enjoying life. And I think it's just great. And he has no pain, and it's just great. So, DDT. So we decided we'd tell that story, and I think it's told very powerfully and not even just wrong, and I really do urge you to do something about it. And the schools are the worst places of all, and you really have to get active. You really have to get busy, and it's not easy. And schools are intimidating. I used to be a teacher. I know exactly how you can intimidate parents. But you need to be bold and strong, and you can go into that school even if you haven't got a child in there, because you're a taxpayer, and your money is being spent on that school. So you have a voice, and you can go in there and say, it's not good enough. And you can be nice, and I mean, there's girls in this room, young women in this room, who are so charming that they could go in there and say, oh gosh, isn't it lovely, we hear you showed an inconvenient truth. And I'm just here because we just think the children deserve to hear a few more voices. Inconvenient truth, one voice, and that voice is not a scientist. I think the children need to hear something else. And that one voice in An Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore, that film, 9 significant errors in that film, according to the High Court in Britain. 9 significant errors. And my brave, wonderful husband took on Al Gore in Wisconsin. Some of you have seen it. It's on YouTube. 2 million people have watched it so far. And my husband went up and said to him, what are we going to do about this? Yes, give it to my husband. Yeah, absolutely. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about these 9 errors? Are you going to change the record? Are you going to go back and re-edit the film? Phil questioned him about that. And it's worth watching, actually. It's really worth watching. And then they cut his mic. They cut Phelan's mic. The whole idea of journalism is you bring truth to power. And the side of truth gets the one moment to be able to ask questions. Not in this case. Not with the Society of Environmental Journalists, who I think aren't really journalists, but they certainly are environmentalists. So we started to then look, obviously, at Al Gore. We started to look at other big voices in the environmental movement and ask ourselves, let's look at these people. James Cameron is one, for example. And James Cameron has a bigger megaphone than just about anybody on the planet. The film Avatar will be watched by more people than any film ever in history. Every child in your lives, everyone has seen it. Everyone has seen it. And the message in it, and for those of you who haven't seen it, please don't buy it. Borrow it, I don't know what. Get it from somebody else, but you probably should watch it. Because the message is very, very dangerous and very scary. America is awful. Mining companies are awful. The rainforest is great. And I would just love to talk to the people in the rainforest and see what they think about that. Because anyone I've met in the developing world and asked them what they think about America, I think you guys know what their response is. I want to live in America. I think the people in the rainforest, if you ask them, where would you like to live? They'd like to live in Connecticut in 5 bedrooms, or they'd like to live in Santa Barbara. It's one or the other. None of them given a choice which to stay there. None of them. But instead of that, we get James Cameron infantilizing these people and saying, isn't it great the way they live? And I don't know if any of you know that he has this big campaign to stop a huge dam project down there called the Belmonte Dam. Have you heard about that? Incredible. It's a dam, huge thing, that would bring electricity to about 20 million people who do not have electricity right now. And guess who's fighting to stop that? James Cameron and Sigourney Weaver. You think they've got electricity in their homes? Yeah, you better, yeah, absolutely. Magda, stand by me. So I want to just show you what we've decided to do is to make a series of short films spotlighting these environmental hypocrites. And the first one we did was James Cameron. And about 180,000 people have watched this so far. And we're going to make a series of them. We're going to make about at least 10 of them. As long as we can try and make some money, we're going to keep going because these stories are worth telling. So this is the James Cameron one, and I think you might enjoy it. And it was quite funny, actually. He actually reacted to that and actually created a YouTube kind of response himself. That's how upset he was about it. But it's interesting. Yeah, he thinks we need to live with less. And I'm thinking, yeah, I like his version of less. Yes. Like I'm for that version of less. You know, because I think that's the difference. I think that's a big difference between liberals and conservatives. You know, I think conservatives want everyone to live like that. That's the dream, really. That's the American dream, isn't it? That everyone would have everything that's available. And there's a lot of not joined up thinking. This is why I think, in some ways, if you get into an argument with an environmentalist, you can quite easily destroy them. What will happen, though, is that rather than argue with you, they will then get personal. They'll make personal remarks about you or about your family. They'll get really abusive, and then the classic thing that I've experienced so many times now, it's like it's a bore. They walk away. Yeah. People get up and walk away. They get out of my house. I've had that. We showed Mind Your Own Business to a couple of very nice folk from New York. You know, we were big pals with them. They were in the advertising business. They were so cool. They were like a really cool couple. You know, those kind of cool couples. They got up and walked out. You know, they said, oh, that's just one mine. You know, that the mining industry destroys and pollutes. And we sat there and Phelan said, give me one example. No, they do. They destroy, they pollute, they ruin everything. Phelan said, we can't argue against a generalization like that. Give us a for instance. Give us a for instance of the awful mining company that did this. No answer to that. No answer to that. You're badgering me now. You're badgering my wife. You know, this guy says, you're badgering my wife. We don't have to sit here and give us for an instance. We know these things. And then out they went. And then we've had death threats. We've people, I hope you die. I hope your children are born handicapped. I hope you get what Hitler's henchmen got, and that you're hung from a short. I mean, we've had all of that, and I've had letters from people I used to know, people I knew, who wrote and said, I hope you fail. Which is really tough, actually. You know, the first time I got that, I have to say, I had it in my mind. And the guy who sent it, I have to just tell you, the guy who sent it to me retired at the age of 45. Yeah. He's retired at the age of 45 because capitalism was so good to him. And now he lives in a stone-cut house on the west coast of Ireland, and he does organic this and organic that, and has toy sheep and all that stuff for the children. And I'm thinking, great, great. He got what he needed out of capitalism. Now he's decided it's awful. I hope you fail. Great, thanks a million. But Cameron needs to be taken on. At the top of the environmental movement are all these celebrities who have a very powerful voice, out there, who are loved by people who love them in movies, and then who watch them and think, I take this on board. So the next person we had a look at was Robert Redford. Now, Robert Redford, to be honest now, there's a few people here around the same age as me who would have definitely had a big soft spot for Robert Redford at one point in their lives. Is that not true? Yeah. We did like him in The Way We Were. We did like him in Out of Africa. We loved all that. We thought he was a great romantic. I just wish some of these guys would just do the thing they do. Be an actor. Yes. And just stop talking after that. Stop talking after that. And we all have our favourites that should keep their mouths shut. Sean Penn. Please, he hates America, but my God, he's hanging on tight to that passport. Hates America, and look what America did for him. Look what America did for him. Look at the life that he has because of this country. That wouldn't have happened, I can tell you, anywhere else. Only here, only in America would it have happened to him, what has happened to him. But there's loads of them, and Robert Redford, awful. So we've made a little short thing about Robert Redford, which I'd like to show you as well. And Magda will line it up there. Some of you know that. He's huge in the environmental movement. He's massive. He's on the board of the NRDC. He hates fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is his big thing. I'm always amused by these people who are against fossil fuels. Like, it's lunacy. Everything is about fossil fuels. Everything that makes life wonderful is about fossil fuels. Thanks be to God for them. And by the way, for anyone who's religious, what do you think the coal's there for? Like, what do you think it's there for? It's really bizarre. I think things have a purpose. I think there's meaning in the world. That out there, and I do say it to people, and I'm sure everyone in this room agrees with me, when you drive up the PCH and you look out on the ocean and see those oil rigs, my heart swells. I feel so good about it. I think it's great. Because I can see how it's connected. It's connected to the Getty. That oil. And have you been to the Getty? You don't pay to get in. It's free to get in. That's oil. The Lincoln Center is oil. All this stuff that liberals love, it's oil, and then they hate oil, and it's like, But I have to say, I do love that. I love that because I can see the connection. People here in California live this incredible life, incredible standard of living. My sister has just gone back to Ireland after being here for a week, and she's confused. She's confused. She's in a daze. She doesn't know where to go with herself because she cannot get over the standard of living. And she lives in Ireland, in a developed country. And people here, I think that's a real problem. Now, none of the young people here have that issue. But so many young people in this country take all of that for granted. And not even take it for granted, it's worse than that. They then, on top of that, idealise the simple life. Yeah. Try it, girlfriend. Try it. Try the simple life. The simple life is a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, the simple life. It's awful. It's awful how people living in places like Africa, how tenuous everything is. This idea of Reagan, I was out there listening to, they have it on our loop, pieces of Reagan's speeches. And, Reagan, the word freedom obviously is like, that's the word, But you don't have freedom if you're poor. You don't. Everything's gone. There are no choices. It's all about, what am I going to eat next? How am I going to survive the next thing? And people here are so free. God, they're so free. We're so free here. It's just great. And have these amazing standards, unbelievable standards, which unfortunately, and this is the crux of the thing, and this is where I'm kind of the direction I'm going in, there is a major threat to that. There is a major threat to that. And for me, the major threat to that is environmentalism in this country. The green movement, the green agenda, is a threat to that. Because it's anti-American. At the heart of it, it's anti-American. It's not anti-Chinese, even though they have more CO2 emissions and all that stuff. No, it's not about CO2 emissions. It's anti-American, it's anti-development, and it's anti-people. These are the three things that are significant. They're the three cornerstones of environmentalism. They don't like people. They don't like America, and they don't like development, except for themselves. So they fly around the world, they do all that stuff, and I mean, I love to tell people that I went to Copenhagen to the climate conference, and I will tell you, even some of you have heard me say that before, and the place is full of young people, beautiful young people, from all over the world, banging on their Apple computers, objecting to mining. And I want to hit them over the head with that particular Apple computer and say to them, where do you think the apple came from? The apple did not grow on a tree. The apple was dug out of the ground. Out of the ground. It was dug out of the ground. All the things that make our lives beautiful were dug out of the ground. Somewhere in the world, an explosion went off and a hole was made and something came out, and that was a washing machine. Washing machines came out of the ground. MRI scanners came out of the ground. My father's hip came out of the ground. And then you're against taking things out of the ground. You can't have it everywhere. You cannot have it everywhere. You can't. And if you want the non-developed lifestyle, you should go for it. Because I can tell you, they'll be lining up in Africa to take your spot here. They'll line up. They'll be lining up. I'll tell you, there'll be no shortage of them. You know, they talk about, you know, that I heard somebody speak, it wasn't my thing, I heard somebody speaking about the Gates rule. I don't know if you've heard that. I love quoting that to people. You know, the Gates rule. If you open the gates, so if America was like all gates, and then you lifted the gates, what direction are people going in? No one's going out. No, when those gates open, everyone's coming in. You know, and that is not true of many countries. In fact, I think it's only true, really, of this country. Ireland, they're all running for anywhere that has any hope of anything. Spain, they're all abandoning ship. Everyone's getting out of there. The French, you know, they all want to come here. They all want to come here. There must be something. What is it? This awful country. This is where they want to come to. They don't even want to go to Canada. They want to come here. It's interesting. So I'm ready, Magda, am I? Yeah. So I just want to show you. I'll just show you Robert Redford. And I know, by the way, I think we've got a little bit extra time. Isn't that right, Camille? Somewhere there. We have a little bit extra time because somebody is unable to come for your next session, so I'll take advantage of that. But I'm also going to be around today for a few hours because I'm going to sign DVDs if anyone wants signed copies, and we are selling DVDs aggressively. And this brings me to kind of my main point this evening, which this morning is so. This is how environmentalists behave. They will do this. This is what they will do. And by the way, and Democrats will do what Democrats do. What I think I want to warn you about today, and I think it's very important, is about people who call themselves conservatives who are not conservatives. And I am going to show you a little something, and I want to make a point that is possibly a little controversial, and some of you mightn't like it, by the way, in this room. Newt Gingrich is thinking of going in 2012. Some of you have a problem with Newt Gingrich because of his many, many wives. And I don't know how many, but there's a few. And some of you have a problem with that, and that's fine. That's not my issue with him. My issue with him is a most recent marriage that some of you maybe don't even know about. And so I want to show you a short something and tell you why I think I have a problem, because I think he's a serious contender, and every time I go to Washington, D.C., he's the name I get. Everyone tells me, when I object to Newt Gingrich, people look at me like I am like from another planet. But then we all know what Washington, D.C. is like. Magda, do I go into Firefox? Oh yeah, I'm here.
Hi, I'm Nancy Pelosi, lifelong Democrat and Speaker of the House.
And I'm Newt Gingrich, lifelong Republican, and I used to be Speaker.
We don't always see eye to eye, do we, Newt?
No, but we do agree our country must take action to address climate change.
We need cleaner forms of energy, and we need them fast.
If enough of us demand action from our leaders, we can spark the innovation we need.
Go to wecansolveit.org. Together, we can do this.
Who likes that? Who likes Newt Gingrich for 2012 with those kind of marriages, with that marriage? Who likes that? I mean, I think this is a very interesting point, and it's very interesting. He is desperately trying to walk back this event. But he sat there. He did an ad. This ad is for Al Gore. He did an ad for Al Gore, and I think if you listen to the text of what he says, it's worth analysing. Enough leaders spark the innovation. Subsidies. I mean, I know exactly what that means. No leaders need to get involved in energy production. The market knows what the market knows, and the market likes cheap energy. And this country has abundant cheap energy. And people like Newt Gingrich want to take away that abundant cheap energy and replace it with unreliable, super, super expensive energy. And I think that's the big question. For every candidate looking at 2012, on both sides, if anyone is on the side of stopping energy production in this country, it is the end of the American dream. That's the end of the American dream. The beautiful lifestyles people enjoy in this room that keep us healthy and live long and prosper and have beautiful, beautiful days, beautiful lives, wonderful possibilities, reading and music and all that, and sushi and washing machines and all of that stuff comes from energy. It's very simple. I didn't know that. I mean, I think I lived, I don't know where I was for a long time in my life, but I suppose you plug stuff in. We plug stuff in. You get in the shower and it's warm, and you never ever question how it ever happened. And maybe in a way, maybe you don't need to, but now we need to. We desperately need for everyone to understand what happens when you plug things in. And to understand that even though your house is gorgeous and clean and beautiful, that what you've plugged into is you plugged into coal. And people need to understand that and need to love the coal and love the oil and love the natural gas that makes this life possible. And it's very interesting. I'm going to stop. Where's Camille? Make a gesture at me. I'm okay. Am I okay? I'm good. There is a film being shown to children in schools at the moment called The Human Footprint. I've just written about it. I don't know if some of you guys have seen that. The Human Footprint. It's made by... who's made it, Magda? The National Geographic, is it as well? It's also made by the National Geographic, and it's an incredible thing. It tells children about how awful they are for living in America. You eat an orange, that orange has travelled this many miles, and this kind of... and one of the big lines in it is, by your first birthday, they tell these children, by your first birthday, you have produced more CO2 emissions than a child in Tanzania does in their entire lifetime. And here's what they didn't say, and I've got the teacher notes, and I'm in touch with people. The Washington Times just interviewed me, and we did a column about my thoughts on this week. And it's incredible. And I said, here's what they're not telling you. Here's what they don't tell those children. Those children have a life expectancy. Any child in America born after 2000 has a life expectancy of, do you know the answer to this? It was in the Wall Street Journal this week. 100. 100. That life expectancy is because of CO2 emissions. They're totally connected. 100% connected to fossil fuels. That's why they live long. Children in Tanzania, 47. 47. There's a lot of people in this room a lot older than 47 and have an awful lot more to achieve and an awful lot more to give back to the world. An extraordinary thing. And these children, you check it out, guys. You can get it online and you can look at the teacher's notes. And the teacher's notes just guilt and guilt and guilt and guilt the children about the life they live. And those children then come home to you and look at you like you're a criminal. And no one is in that classroom saying to the children, what we need in this world is for everyone to have this. Everyone deserves this. This American dream, this idea that you can, that all these possibilities are open to you, that no one's holding you back. That idea, that dream, which drives people nuts around the world, and they're all going nuts to try and get here because of that, because there's nowhere else quite like this place, where people will give you that opportunity. Nowhere like it. And we recognise that. We are, have come here, my husband and I, Magda, have come from Poland. We are so grateful to be here and so proud of this country and so proud of what you've achieved and what you are capable of achieving. And we are here to sound a warning to you that we see the threats. Because Europe embraced all this stuff. Europe has embraced all this stuff. Ireland is a basket case. You've seen Portugal this year, this last week now, Portugal are looking for a bailout, then it'll be on to Spain. Spain was the poster child. It was the poster child for green energy. And they're a basket case. Their situation is dire, desperate. And you have this possibility of continuing this incredible life and giving back to the world amazing innovations. And the threats are there. And I specifically just want to leave that image there, however I can, if you can imagine it back there with Newt Gingrich sitting on a bench with Nancy Pelosi saying we can solve it. We don't want, I don't think anyone in this room potentially wants Newt Gingrich to solve anything for us, actually. Because if his great big idea is to stop using fossil fuels, to believe this myth of CO2 emissions, to believe this fable, this crazy fable that goes against every kind of evidence that we can see and that we can measure, and that real scientists have pointed out the truth to us. What side are we on? And as I said, the environmental movement is very good at messing up with science. They did it with DDT very effectively, and about 30 million children are dead. We can't let it happen with energy. Thank you very much. I think we've time for questions. Is that correct, Camille? Yeah. Is that correct? Yeah. We'll take some questions. She's got the mic.
I just wanted to thank you for coming and to say that the University of Missouri will be buying your DVDs and we will be showing it at our campus. Also, I heard a statistic somewhere that for every 2 green jobs created, or for every 1 green job created, 2 traditional jobs are lost. Is there validity behind that statement? What do green jobs do to traditional jobs?
Yeah, no, there is complete validity to that. I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but there's loads and loads of evidence to counter that. Because basically what they're saying is they're replacing do you think all the people who work in the coal mines in America are going to suddenly be making solar panels? That's going to be that transition is going to move that easily. Clearly the industries that are here that are producing fossil fuels, there isn't a simple transition. And in fact, the solar panels are being made in China. So, I don't know what the accurate numbers are. There's loads of studies on this. And absolutely, I think, in fact, if anything, it's more than 2.
So the creation of jobs by the green jobs are a joke, essentially?
Yeah. It's a myth. And just to add to that, if manufacturing in America obviously employs a lot of people, still employs a lot of people. If you have higher energy prices, businesses will move elsewhere where there is low energy prices. There will for the foreseeable future, there will be low energy prices in China. So nothing will be made here. Now, that's a big loss of jobs.
Yeah. We're always reading statements in the paper and from the environmentalists. In your travels, what kind of scientific credentials do these people have?
That's a very good question. In most cases, very, very few. Very, very few. A lot of people, and it's interesting, and it's something that, and it drives me nuts, by the way, when I watch CNN and BBC, they put this Greenpeace, whatever. I'm like, yeah, Greenpeace, fine, right? You're in Greenpeace. Like, what are you, though? Are you an ecologist? Are you a scientist? Are you a physicist? But they're allowed to speak, and we don't get to hear their credentials. In most cases, the leaders of these organizations are not scientists.
I just wanted to quickly say something. I really admire you standing up for DDT. I'm a microbiologist, and I'm going to go into infectious diseases. I think that's fantastic. There's very few people actually saying this on DDT. I'm glad you're saying this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this is kind of a personal question. My name is George, and you folks, many of me in Tanzania, but him George?
Yes.
And you took me around the world. And last time I saw your video, which is doing, folks, by the video. It's a wonderful video. Where's George today?
George is in Romania. He's still unemployed, and it's terrible. And people like yourself constantly ask about George because the film is very powerful. That's why I think, I kind of didn't finish what I was meant to say, which was kind of to tell you what to do. You definitely need to buy the films, and you need to bring people into your house and show it to them and ask them to explain themselves afterwards. Because the end of Mind Your Own Business makes me cry. It still does when I watch it, because we drove away and we left him there. What could we do? And those two women, those two environmentalists, are winning. They're winning there. The mine has not opened. Yeah, no, the mine hasn't opened. No, extraordinary. And actually, Magda's going to remind me too. Can I just say to everyone, are you all Facebook? Yeah, become friends. I know I've got some friends here from Seattle, Lisa and that, are already friends on Facebook. But please become a friend on Facebook. And my Twitter handle, and those of you who don't Twitter, get over it. That's what I just say to people. I don't care if you're 100. You have to Twitter because it's a really incredible tool for getting in touch with the world. A powerful tool. And those who's the convert? Yeah. We got some converts here who have just discovered the power of Twitter. Very, very powerful. And I'm just Ann McElhinney, at Ann McElhinney. So please be in touch on Twitter and on Facebook. But I want you, bring people into your house. Make them watch Mind Your Own Business.
There's something out. The conservatives probably need to, take hold and do that. So what do you suggest?
No, it's very tough. I think Hollywood is a very tough nut to crack. But I think the kind of thing that we're doing on YouTube and just virally sending stuff out like that, they won't like it. And perhaps it'll make them think twice about, maybe it'll make them think about things. But you know what these people are like. Their thinking is so out there. It's so bizarre. It's so irrational, illogical, that it's very hard. They're a blown up version of, some of the people that you have in your own life who are tough to talk to. But it's worse because they're living in a world where no one ever challenges them and no one ever says no to them, which creates all kinds of problems for them, because they're never ever challenged, and that's very tough. It's very tough. It's very tough. Yeah.
This is the last question.
Yeah, this is the last question, and then I'm going to be signing DVDs, and we are selling DVDs next year.
Thank you very much, Ann. Another anti-Newt he is on record by way of Rush Limbaugh's newsletter as saying the era of Reaganism is over. He lost me there.
Yeah.
Along with all the other faux pas he's made.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a million, Elizabeth. Yeah. Okay, we're good. Thanks very much. Thank you.